Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I note the Honorable Attorney General's withdrawal or amendment to the bill in which he sought to withdraw Clause 3. It's very, very interesting that he chose to do that, because I think the Honorable Attorney General recognized that he was erring. Because when he proffered the amendment in 2022, he went to great lengths to say to us, and let me find the quote because I don't want to misquote him. These amendments are to prevent further abuse of the electoral system and promote transparency. And of course, in those amendments, he used the word shall, because I think the Honorable Attorney General recognized the importance of shall, the importance of mandating that particular function, because it is a cornerstone function of our democracy. And so for him to come here this morning and to withdraw it, I am happy. And I suspect that the Honorable Attorney General thought that by withdrawing it, we would not engage in debate. Well, I have news for the Honorable Attorney General. He's wrong. Again, you know, Mr. Speaker, I will say this. The AG clearly thought, the Honorable Attorney General clearly thought that when he withdrew this, that we would not engage in further scrutiny. He realized that by opening up this legislation to debate, that he was opening the door for us to make some important observations. And he wanted to preclude it. And I've sat and I've listened to them saying, oh, they came prepared to speak about Section 33C. But I want to say to us and the Guyanese people that the mischief is not in Section 33C. Don't be fooled by the sleight of hand. The mischief is in that work plan that 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐞 has prepared. That is where the mischief is. Because, you know, I had a question for the Honorable Attorney General when he was saying, oh, I will remove, I withdraw the amendment changing shall to may, as to what mischief he intended to cure by this amendment. But it is obvious that the amendment was intended not to cure, but to create mischief. Mr. Speaker, we have heard for the last few days input from the commissioners, particularly the non-governmental commissioners. We've heard input from the opposition commissioners on the matter of this work plan. And Mr. Speaker, when you listen to it, the rascality in all of it becomes so obvious. Hold on, Zulfi. I will tell you what the rascality is. I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. Because, Mr. Speaker, directly related to the integrity of our voters list is this question of claims and objections. And Mr. Speaker, according to 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐞, let me tell you what 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐞 says about claims and objections. It is important to ensure accuracy and transparency of the official list of electors. This is what 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐞 says on its website. They say essentially it is an important mechanism by which 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐞 ensures the integrity of the list. Mr. Speaker, it is known that 3 critical activities are undertaken during this time, and I will simplify it so that the smallest child could understand. Claims, which is basically saying, I am entitled to be on the list, but I'm not. And therefore, I am putting a claim in that you got to put me there because I lawfully belong there. Objections, where someone who has no business being on the list is on the list. and of course transfers, where I appear on the list in one geographic location, but I've since moved and I need it to be reflected on the list. Because, for example, if I were registered in 𝐿𝑒𝑡 and I am now reassigned to the coast, if my name is not moved, I will have to fly to 𝐿ETM to vote. So I want us to understand why claims and objections are so foundational. So, Mr. Speaker, in the current work plan that 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐶 has, there are essentially 5 days given for claims and objections. And I want us to understand the significance of that. Because, Mr. Speaker, since 1992, claims and objections have lasted for anywhere between 21 days, up to 21 days. There have been instances where there were 14 days, but with agreement of the parties involved. 14 days for claims, 7 days for objections. And this has been our practice for over 30 years. And understand that this time span wasn't chosen by accident. It came out of the experience of what 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐶 needed in order to ensure and imbue integrity into the electoral process. So, Mr. Speaker, what you have happening here is that this period has been reduced to 5 days. It's been reduced to 5 days. And so, less than a quarter of what was regarded as the bare minimum. Mr. Speaker, we have to understand that this is not administrative adjustment. This is a wholesale, just an erosion of a foundational function that ensures the integrity of our elections. So, Mr. Speaker, I want us to consider also a catch-22 that this 5-day window that they have put in place causes. Now, under the law, let's take objections, for example. And again, I am stating this as simply as possible because I want the youngest child to understand how the PPPC is going about disenfranchising Guyanese, robbing them of their right to choose a government of their choice. Mr. Speaker, when you think about objections, when an objection is lodged against someone on the list, 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐶 is required to notify both the objector and the objectee. The objector, the person making the objection, the objectee, the person being objected to. The law mandates that notice must be given for a hearing, and that notice must reach the person 2 clear days before the actual hearing. However, Mr. Speaker, we must understand that in the context of a 5-day exercise, this legal requirement collapses under its own weight. How, you may ask? Let's consider the timelines. So, day 1, an objection is lodged. Day 2, 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐶 processes and issues notices. Day 3 or 4, the notice is received. And day 5, a hearing is held. Now, this timeline that I've put out here presupposes flawless execution. And we know that that is not a reality in this country. We know that. So, the practical implications are these. 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐶 will either have to breach its 2-day notice, violating the law, or proceed with hearings that give the affected parties inadequate time, a breach of due process. So, Mr. Speaker, either way, this is procedurally defective. Mr. Speaker, it will mean that large numbers, essentially this is what it will mean, that large numbers of people who may be on the list and who are not entitled to be on the list will not be removed from the list. That is what it means. And this is important because I want us to remember that the last cycle of registration ended a few days ago on May 31st. Why is this significant? Because that preliminary list ought to be subjected to a process of claims and objections that will call the list, purify the list, cleanse the list, and that has to be done in 5 days. It means that the list as is the list that we will get. Now let's look on the list as is. And this is where, Mr. Speaker, enter the Venezuelan migrants, right here. Because my colleague, the Honorable Sherrod Duncan, alluded to the fact that they were on the ground and they were told by Venezuelan migrants that they're awaiting birth certificates. It is alleged that at the last NTC Congress or conference, birth certificates were doled out. Hundreds and thousands. Mr. Speaker, we warned when we were doing in this National Assembly the Registration of Births and Deaths Act, the amendment to it. We warned that what would happen is that persons who were not deserving of a birth certificate would be given a birth certificate. And this is what we are seeing. Mr. Speaker, you know what? You know what our scrutineers are being confronted with? Our scrutineers are being confronted with a phenomenon of people with names like Carlos James, with a birth certificate, but cannot speak a lick of English. But they have a birth certificate. And do you know what that means? And you know, I know they would say this. They love to say that this is the role of the scrutineer, but the truth is that no scrutineer is trained, nor do they have the authority to turn back an applicant with a prima facie legal birth certificate. So the scrutineering is not going to solve the problem. So they have rigged these elections from the issuance of birth certificates. So the truth is that we could come here and we could debate all day. The fix is in. Because they rigged it from the issuance of birth certificates.
The bandits are inside the house grill, though. Bandits are inside the grill.
And so, you know, Mr. Speaker, I heard the Honorable Attorney General talking about reinforcing, you know, the security and talking about banditry. But what they are doing in the name of security, it is like you are removing the door. You're taking the locks off of the door in response to a security breach. That's what they're doing here. And so, Mr. Speaker, what this government has done is engineered the population right before our very eyes. That is what they have done. And we have been warning about it for years. But you know what? This government has a lot of money to spend on propaganda. And they've spent a lot of time calling us on this side of the house riggers, etc., to distract from the fact that they are absolutely the ones culpable of undermining the will of the people of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, it's no wonder we can't have the results of the census, because they just do not want us to know. Because remember, a census is a snapshot of the population of your country at a particular date, in a particular period. So they know that if they release the results of the census, it will show what it will show, and it will bring into question the very sharp increase in numbers that we are seeing on this bloated voters list. This is why they're not giving us the census, because they are attempting to engineer the population.
Riggers.
Mr. Speaker, Another example of this. And they're doing it strategically. They're choosing certain areas in which to do it. They're doing it in areas that they wish to shift the demographics. Because, so for example now, if I live at, let's say, Lot 10 Queenstown, I have lived at Lot 10 Queenstown all of my life. But when I check on the list, there got 15 other people living at Lot 10 Queenstown. If I want to challenge that, I have, it's 3 days for claims, I think, and 2 days for objections. I have 2 days to challenge that. That is the mischief. That is the wickedness that this government is perpetuating. And you see all of them getting up and walk out because they know that they have been caught with their pants down. And on this residency requirement, Mr. Speaker, I want us to understand what is happening here. Because the question remains, if I am living at a particular address, and I know people not living at this address, how many people are willing to stand up to challenge that system? How many people will stand to challenge that system? Because the minute they do that, they face political victimization. And they have to be worried that they're going to lose the little 10-day job that they have. But, Mr. Speaker, what this comes down to, and the heart of this matter, is that the Attorney General has amended the law so that it no longer speaks about residence, it speaks about an address. Right? This means that persons obviously can put an address even if they don't live there. Mr. Speaker, by the amendments passed by the Honorable Attorney General in this House, this is now legal. I could put an address even though I don't live there. And so, Mr. Speaker, what used to be clear-cut questions of electoral fraud and list padding, things that could be exposed, that could be challenged, that could be brought before the courts, have now been legalized by the series of amendments brought by this government over the many years that we have been in this National Assembly. The rules have been changed in a way that they shut down scrutiny. It is not that questionable practices are now allowed. It is that they have been legalized, and this is what I want the people to understand, that they are now beyond challenge. There is no more opportunity for a concerned citizen or a concerned group to raise valid objections and have it tested in court, because the very definition of what is allowed has been rewritten to protect these illegal practices. And so, Mr. Speaker, what we're seeing here is not just bad policy. It is the deliberate closing off of the legal and democratic tools that will allow the public to call this out. So what are Guyanese to do? And when you think it's bad, Mr. Speaker, it gets worse. Because what you see by the amendments that have been passed over the years, as my colleague, Ms. Sarabo Hali alluded to, and Mr. Sherrod Duncan, and Mr. Roysdale Ford, is the continuous erosion and legalizing of mischief and of wickedness. And so, Mr. Speaker, you look at that work planned by GCOM, the fix is in. That is where the mischief is. You look at it, and you see that there are some key timelines. Mr. Speaker, there are some key timelines, for example, and Commissioner Charles Corbin raised this note. He raised this concern. He noted that there's a provision that warrants closer scrutiny. Because according to the plan, the published draft plan, political parties and list of candidates will be informed of any defects in their submissions. Now we know that the list of candidates is what basically allows political parties, and you would do well to be quiet and listen and learn. You'll be quiet, you should be quiet and listen and learn. Mr. Speaker, the fact is that there is a period of 2 days for political parties to remedy the errors in their submissions. And the opposition commissioner made the point, Mr. Speaker, that while the larger parties, us in this house here, whilst the larger parties may have the resources, may have the logistics, and the established networks to navigate such a tight timelines, smaller parties do not. And so it is entirely possible that by this mere administrative maneuvering, smaller parties may be unable to participate in this election. Now, people will say, you from a big party, you shouldn't care. But we must care, because the very essence of democracy is to give our people...
Honorable member, I'm just thinking about relevance to the amendment before us. And I don't want to debate on it. I'm cautioning you, okay?
Thank you.
Because the process you're meandering, I don't think we have changed for decades. For decades. And don't forget, I have been around for more than 4.5 in the system.
Mr. Speaker, I am going to repeat what I said. I've said, and it is relevant, Mr. Speaker, in the context. It is important, Mr. Speaker, in the context of the discussion that we've been having all morning. And Mr. Speaker, I am aware that past practice has given parties as much as 30 days to do this. It is on record at GCOM. No.
We were talking about to correct the list, and you were saying 2 days the administrating issue. But to do what now? Tell me.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I will start so that I can explain properly. And you know, Mr. Anil Nandlal is over there and he has a lot of big talk. But if he will allow me to speak, I will explain to him. Mr. Speaker, the point that I am making is that when you examine the plan, it gives parties 2 days. 2 days to remedy inaccuracies that are discovered on their list of candidates. That is what it does. And I will give you the specific time frame because I have it written down here. Parties, political parties and list of candidates will be informed of any defects in their submission on the 15th of July and will be expected to correct those defects by the 17th of July. That is what GCOM work plan says. A mere 2-day window. It therefore means, Mr. Speaker.
No, we're not arguing that. We are arguing that you said they had up to 30 days. Right? The 30 days is what I'm... Never did.
It
Never
means,
did, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It means, Mr. Speaker, that the smaller parties that do not have our logistical network ability will suffer.
Come on, I asked you just now to go back on track with this and don't debate and argue with me over the administrative issues with GCOM. And I said also that as far as I know, for the 4.5 decades I've been involved in the political process, there hasn't been legislation to affect this. And this is not before us now. So I don't know, we're debating GCOM's administrative role. We're bringing GCOM's discussions with respect to the administration of elections to the House now, when we have an amendment to a specific piece of legislation. Good? And I'll tell you, if smaller parties are serious, they would do it right the first time. And I have been in a party which has been commended, right? So please, let's leave this where it is, and let's get back to the amendment dealing with the omission which the Attorney General is trying to remedy now.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I note, Mr. Speaker, that we are in a parliamentary debate. I note your comments, Mr. Speaker, and I would want to remind this Honorable House about a recent occurrence. Y'all remember the local government election?
Yes, people say.
Y'all remember when it was the Honorable Sonia Parag, was it her district, that had people who were dead signing the list of nominators? And you come to tell us that it's not relevant what I'm saying?
Come back to the relevance to this particular piece of legislation.
Mr. Speaker, I am telling you the relevance. I am telling you the relevance because it was the honorable member on the other side who issued an apology. The Vice President issued an apology to the family for their names appearing on the list. The emotional distress Mrs. Jacobs' family felt. So, Mr. Speaker, it is directly correlated. It is directly correlated.
I'm still trying to see the correlation because we're dealing here with appointing a deputy.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, the people of Guyana see the correlation, and that is what is important to me.
So apparently you've run out of arguments now for not supporting the bill.
Wow!
I have, again, to caution you to let us stay relevant to what's before.
Mr. Speaker, it is relevant. Mr. Speaker,
honorable members, again, please.
Mr. Speaker, it is relevant. Mr. Speaker, as a debater, we know that unless I am engaging in unparliamentary language, etc., I ought to be allowed to make my point.
As a debater, you have to stay within the rules of the standing order.
I am staying within the rules, sir. I am staying within the rules. What you are doing is interfering with my ability to speak to the people of Guyana. This is the people's house.
Honorable members, I ask you to come back to the bill before us, the amendment before us.
I will come back to the bill. I will come back to the bill, Mr. Speaker. I will come back to the bill. And as I continue, Mr. Speaker, in what I was saying, because I've never left the bill. I've never left it. People may want to say, oh, why are you concerned about this? You from a big party, I got the logistics. But I'm making the point that the essence of democracy is that we got to give people the ability to choose. And we cannot use administrative sleight of hand to rob the people of Guyana. We cannot do that, Mr. Speaker. And so we got to ensure that the procedural requirements do not lend to the people of Guyana being robbed. And this is what this work plan is facilitating. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what is you know what is so frustrating about it? It is directly tied to the process of GCOM. Because 3 commissioners could get together with the chairman and fight this atrocity on the people of Guyana. And you want to tell us it's not relevant? I'll end by saying this, Mr. Speaker. I'll end by saying this. because the PPP, and they did it here this morning, Honorable Nanda has a lot to say. They've been parading Lowenfield and Myers and Mingo as a part of electoral abuse. I am responding.
Honorable Member Mr. Vikash, allow the honorable members to speak, and you're using a word I've cautioned people on.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am making the point. I am making the point, Mr. Speaker, that the PPP has spent the last 5 years accusing the opposition of being riggers, of wanting, listen to me, of wanting to thwart the will of the people. They did it this morning, but what we have just laid bare is that they, in fact, are the riggers, and they've rigged it without one vote being cast.
Honorable members, you need an extension to continue.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the honourable member to be given an extension in keeping with the standing orders. Thank you.
Honorable member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In closing, I will say, Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will say this. In closing, Mr. Speaker, we vilify Lowenfield and Myers and Mingo. Comrade Walden Lawrence as proof of electoral abuse. But I want to say this, Mr. Speaker. If it was wrong then, it is wrong now. A system, Mr. Speaker, that was allegedly abused in 2020 should not now be restructured to allow for less public scrutiny. That's what they're doing by giving you 2 days to file objections and 3 days for claims. But they are the guardians of democracy. Mr. Speaker, like I said, this is like responding to a security breach by removing the locks off the door. Mr. Speaker, they claim to be doing this to be preventing rigging, but the real rigging is being built into the system by design. Mr. Speaker, that is what is happening here. Through this weakened claims and objections period, Mr. Speaker, and these quiet changes to the law, and then Nandal will come and say, Mr. Speaker, this is a small amendment. It ought not to draw debate. But wrapped in all of that charm and guile is a degree of wickedness and capriciousness that we have to call out, Mr. Speaker. This is not reform like he is saying. This is not reform, this is rigging. This is rigging in advance. This is rigging by law. And this is rigging under the cover of legitimacy. And so, Mr. Speaker, while they flood the airways with their propaganda and they smear others as the threats to democracy, they're coming here and they're laying the groundwork. They're laying the groundwork to steal the upcoming elections long before any Guyanese casts their first vote. They want Guyanese to be trapped in the past whilst they actively sabotage our future. Mr. Speaker, let us be very clear that putting people on the voters list who do not live here and who do not meet the requirements is not a clerical error. It is an attack on the sovereign will of the people of Guyana. Because what it does, Mr. Speaker, is that it creates a dangerous opening for non-Guyanese to be injected into our political processes, giving them the ability to undermine us from within, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will end by saying this. This conduct, the attitude of this government is reckless And it exposes us, and it exposes our political system to infiltration by those who would seek to undermine the territorial integrity of this nation. And I know that the people of Guyana know what I'm talking about. Mr. Speaker, I will end by saying this, and I will end by saying this without apology, that if we remain silent, and if we refuse to act, we are complicit in our own disenfranchisement. Mr. Speaker, elections are not won on voting day. They are lost based on the lack of integrity of the process. And when that process is compromised, Mr. Speaker, elections is a performance. It's just a mere act. Mr. Speaker, the outcome is a lie. And I'm ending by saying to the people of Guyana that the PPP has shown us what they are prepared to do. The question now is what we are prepared to do to stop them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.